Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Aparuta de Sangamata Satavara Ye Sodavanta Bamunchantu Satang. So this is the observance night, and the winter's retreat continues. And the next observance night will be called Magha Puja. It's the full moon of February. One of the major celebratory days in our tradition. And so we have a tradition that we use, like the Pamajaroka, using the Pali request to give a talk or teaching. We use this ancient language Pali, and got these ties to this particular form tradition, with all its benefits and deficits. Like when we're dealing with forms, conventions, you recognize that they have that none of them are perfect. They are, they're merely expedient means. Especially when you're dealing with a tradition as old as this one, and it gets, the traditions accumulate through time all kinds of additions to them, so that and they are highly affected by the various cultures and conditions that they are established in. So my strong connection is with the Thai forest tradition, northeast Thailand. Ajahn Chah's style. So just pointing out what tradition is a convention or a means that carries teachings and forms from one generation to the next. They're not ends in themselves, but they do have their purpose. The danger is always attaching to tradition, being stuck in a particular form and not being able to see beyond it. So we become sectarian then, or cultish, when we just attach to the tradition alone. But the Buddha's teaching, of course, is the awakened awareness. When the Buddha was alive, I assume there wasn't any tradition then that, he was the origin of it. So then 2,547 years later, we find ourselves talking about the great sage, Gautama the Buddha, and we refer back to the scriptures and Varanasi and in Gaya and all these names that of places in India. And so when we go to these places in modern day, we find, the in Buddha Gaya, which was, for years almost forgotten, now has been revived as a kind of Buddhist sacred place. In Saranath, which is outside of Benares, the remnants of the stupa and the monasteries that were established there. You go to Savasti, and you can observe the foundations of the old Jendavana monastery, and then we read about the cities and life in India that we can glean from the Pali scriptures. So that's history, and remember we can speculate, we can accumulate all kinds of information. And then getting to the real essence, the core of the teaching, the heart of Buddhism. And then it's pointing at you as an individual, at your heart. They're not talking about some abstraction, some kind of ethereal essence or some abstract possibility of essence, but the whole point of awareness, isn't it? Mindfulness is awakenness, is being able to learn from yourself, learn the Dhamma from this formation here, this physical form, these mental conditions that arise and cease. Now, I've always found it interesting to reflect on the being the center of the universe. Now, this can sound like a real kind of egotistical trip, if you want, or form of megalomania, but not putting it in the context of me as a person, because the personality is certainly not the center of anything. But in terms of experience right now, just reflecting, contemplating the existence as I am experiencing it through this form, and this conscious form at this moment this is the center point, isn't it? For me, anyway. And then the universe surrounds this point. On the level of conventional reality, I can see myself as just another human being in the human population of the planet, another monk in the Sangha, another, on the conventional level, that's also, how we operate on the level of society and population on the conventional plane. But the existential reality of this moment is that contemplating from this center point. Now you can see I'm not claiming this as some kind of egotistical statement, because that would that's not to claim it, but to recognize. Just begin to notice the way it is, being a conscious individual form in the universe is like this. If I interpret it on a personal level, then I see myself in more conventional ways as being a senior monk or Ajahn Sumedho, or being a citizen of Britain, or being a member of the human population of the planet, or all the different conventional identities and positions that one uses in daily life. But in terms of reflecting on the way it is at this moment, the Buddho, or the awakened conscious, using our this conscious moment, this reality of this moment, with awareness, and with wisdom, panya, then this I recommend for you to try out. Begin to just instead of operating from the conventional position of being somebody who has to practice meditation in order to realize the ultimate reality, that's start operating from the center point of just not claiming it through perceptions of any sort, of self or non-self, but just trusting in the awareness and checking it out. So when I do this, then I just, the sense of the all around me, isn't it? There's space that has no limit. There's and consciousness, no limit to it. Unless I, put a limit into consciousness and then operate from that identity or that convention or that perception. Now this is what we call reflecting on the way it is, awakening to the real, to reality, the real world, or the real dhamma. So, and reflecting on the way it is. I remember trying to teach, or I've talked about reflection a lot, and of course that's what the whole point of Winter's Retreat is about, is learning to use your reflective capacities. Intellectual capacities are different, isn't it? It's more, you start with an idea and then you deduct from that premise in a logical way. You start from a position or an idea, and then the logical sequence follows from that. From reflective intelligence, it's coming not from a perception of anything, but an imminent awakening state, a natural state of attention in the present that can't be identified as anything, but to be recognized or realized, to learn to value this ability to be here and now, to recognize this natural state of attention, of awakened awareness, is just like this. So that's why the attitude is no longer one of trying to get samadhi or trying to get something that maybe you've had in the past that you'd like to have again, or because sometimes in meditation, as you practice and you have experiences and insights, and then you remember, when I was on last winter's retreat, I really got into this sublime state, which I keep trying to get on this retreat, but I'm not getting anywhere. What's wrong? I got it last winter's retreat. Because one is imagining a state or remembering some previous state that you enjoyed and that you'd like to have again. And so that's not mindfulness and wisdom operating, that's just memory and operating from the sense of wanting something you remember. Or maybe you haven't had, maybe you don't even know what an insight moment is. Maybe you haven't had any real insightful experiences through meditation yet. But you imagine, you have a kind of an idea that it's something or other. So you would like to, you can create an image or a perception of what you think might be that, and then aim for it. But this is all attachment to conditions again, isn't it? To either a memory of the past or some abstract idea or creation of that you've made in the present. Where awareness in the present is not a memory, not operating from remembering, trying to remember a past moment, but learning to recognize this reality. So being in the center point is here and now. And for each one of us, the center point is, your heart, putting it in more poetic terms. Not your physical blood-pumping heart. But because this is where you experience life, from the time you were born to this very present time till the time your body dies. Let's face it, we have to experience life from here. The way the conditioned realm impinges on this form, on this conscious form, and the various reactive patterns that it has in regarding to deal with impingement, with phenomena, with experience. So we all develop ways of reacting and dealing with this impingement from the time we're born, isn't it? We develop all kinds of ways of dealing with pleasure, pain, fear, desire, what we see, what we hear, smell, taste, touch, with the conditions of our family, the state of our parents and the society that we live in. All of these impinge on us, and condition us in many ways to interpret experience in a traditional or particular, in a certain way, and so with certain identities. So that's the conditioning that we acquire, and if we don't see through that, if we can't reflect on that conditioning and put it in a context of dhamma, then we are caught in just the momentum of habits. So we just develop habits, some good habits, bad habits, neutral habits, but we tend to just keep repeating, operating through these habits till we die. So then awakening, the awakened state is not a habit. It's not, but it is a natural state that's available to all of us here and now. So awakening is what the whole is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. Now the very imperative, I always like to, that when somebody asks me what is the Buddha's teaching, or what is it about, somebody asked me, could you describe the Buddha's teaching, the essence of the teaching in one sentence? And I said, I can do it with one word. Awake. So that's as simple as that. It's and the word Buddha, Bhutto, is the Pali word for that. Awaken. You can translate awakened one. Awaken. It's consciousness with awareness. Now we can be conscious, still be not aware, not awake. So a completely crazy person, totally lost in the most absurd delusions, is still a conscious being, isn't it? It's not, he or she is not unconscious yet, maybe sometimes. But even when they are, operating in the state of consciousness that we recognize, it's bombarded with delusions and attachment to those delusions. So actually, we're living in a world, most of whose members are crazy anyway, including ourselves. So, there's a certain level of craziness that we call normal behavior. And then and then a certain level of craziness that we call abnormal, and then we get very threatened by people whose craziness exceeds what we call the accepted level of madness. So like invading Iraq and that seems to be a level of madness that most people found normal behavior. War is, we can kind of understand that because war is very much what we expect from life. Life for us is a war usually, inside yourself, a battle from within. Trying to control, trying to get rid of the bad ones and kill the villains and try to hold on to the good ones. So in a reflective ability to reflect on the way it is, it means that it's like this witnessing or watching, observing from this position of the Bhutto, or the awakened consciousness that is awake to the experience of here and now. And that's why in meditation, so much of our experience is oftentimes very confusing, emotionally confusing, or it's not clear, it's not precise, it can change very quickly, or you're caught in all kinds of conflict, internal conflicts with your intellectual conditioning versus your emotional habits. So I remember, just what a hard line my intellect would take on my emotional states. Like this, and to be very self-disparaging. And I'm just speaking for myself, from what I remember of my, dealing with meditation, was a tendency to be very critical of myself. So this was, had certainly, the intellect was developed enough to be able to criticize the emotional experiences I could be having in the present. And I found emotional experience very unsettling, because emotions aren't clear, aren't precise, aren't accurate experiences. They're not reasonable or even sensible. So it's easy to judge them and kind of even fear them or despise them. Like a person totally attached to rationality oftentimes despises emotion, either in oneself or in somebody else. And when somebody starts getting emotional, we can feel very, threatened by that. What are we supposed to do? Be reasonable. Snap out of it. Don't be like that. Because emotional experience is what can you do with it? How do you respond to it? So we can, drug them up is usually modern. Take a lot of tranquilizers or antidepressants or do something to kind of make the mind dull again. So it doesn't get, don't get into a kind of embarrassing emotional states or irrational conditions operating through your consciousness, and you can kind of damp it all down, dumb yourself down with drugs and chemicals. And then you can appear kind of normal again, acceptable in modern society. But recognize that the realm we're living in is a feeling realm. I mean, with this experience we're having as a sensitive, conscious form is about sensitivity, isn't it? It's it's a continuous challenge, because from birth until death, this body and these senses, this mind, are going to be impinged on in some way. And our reactions to that impingement, are highly conditioned. Whether we're open to reality, or we're operating from a fixed position, or just the momentum of habits based on ignorance and fear. So in waking up, then this isn't asking anybody to do the impossible, is it? We're not waking up is not a kind of advanced state that only kind of special gifted meditators achieve. It's a natural state. It's nothing special. But if all our effort of our life is based on trying to control our emotions and trying to interpret and describe experience only through the rational mind, then of course we can't get beyond that. We're kind of stuck in these fixed habits, and we experience life through reactions, habitual reactions to impingement, which is quite depressing, really. Especially as you get older, it gets when you're young, everything's fairly new and you're learning and your habits are forming. But when you're my age, you've been through it all for so many times. And if there was no way out, there's nothing that I just had to kind of just be this helpless victim of sensory impingement till I dropped dead. Then I'd be probably quite depressed. Because in old age, you really are facing, death becomes much more immediate than, say, even 5 years ago, reaching 70. Like, just that perception of this body is 70 years old now. It's an old body. And it's been pumping blood and doing all that stuff for 70 years. It's a long time, isn't it, with this kind of formation. And I keep wondering when it's going to start really showing signs of wear. You don't know what you can look on the external surface and see the sagging flesh and the wrinkles and all that, but internally, I keep wondering when I go have physical checkup what they're going to discover. They take X-rays and use ultrasound and high-tech equipment to see what's going on inside, which I can't see. But definitely one feels that it's wearing out, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. It's not, it doesn't have the vigor of youth or even middle age anymore. So death is much more interesting to me. I meditate on just that perception of death a lot, because that's what's my future. That's the big moment in the future. That's the certainty, isn't it, of that we all have, whether we're young or old, is that we're going to die. The body is going to die. So then, also, we are the owners of our karma, heir to our karma, born of our karma, related to our karma, supported by our karma, by my karma, and so forth. And we reflect on that, on karma. So the karma, the emotional habits, the reactions that I have to impingement, to experience here and now. So observing this, from this position of the being in the center, and not being a person, not having a name even. There's no Ajahn Sumedho in awareness. Ajahn Sumedho arises and ceases. But in that pure state of awareness, there's no person. Nobody there. So from there, then the identities, because the persons do arise, the various roles, reactions, habits that arise and cease according to what's happening, the conditions that arise in the present. So right now the condition is Ajahn Sumedho is giving a dhamma reflection on the high seat in the temple of Amaravati on the observance night. The karmic conditions come together for this experience now. Then the state of mind when I'm sitting up here, the center of all your attention, the focus of everybody listening to me, talking to a microphone. Then reflecting on just the conditions that I'm experiencing now. Now, having trained myself, having practiced for so many years, then actually the sense of emptiness is stronger than any kind of self-consciousness. It used to be the other way. When I'd be asked to give a dhamma talk, and then you put yourself up in the high seat in front of everybody, everybody's focused on you, bring up incredible sense of self-consciousness. So I'd look out and, what am I supposed to say, what if what do they think? Am I boring them? Do they like what I'm saying? Do they agree? They don't agree? Maybe? Do I sound intelligent, or am I just making an idiot of myself? The self-consciousness could easily take over when because those are the habitual reactions of a self. So this is, but then through addressing that, through using a situation like this, giving a Dhamma desana, giving a Dhamma talk, sitting in the high seat, and reflecting, or however you want to express it, teaching the Dhamma, reflecting, or sharing knowledge, or these are different ways of expressing. But anyway, being able to sit up in front of others and natter on for an hour. But then the awakened state, as I began to observe, even use this situation when you're right in the middle of a situation that would arouse the ultimate in self-consciousness, I should think, when you're the center of attention, then how to use that with awareness. And of course this I found very, because of the training in Thailand, it was, I feel very grateful for that, because Ajahn Chah actually was very much one who encouraged us never to plan anything you say, never write out your Dhamma talk and then read it to the people, or to even plan your kind of words of wisdom to share with the congregation. And the whole point was to use situation. He said, when he first asked me to do this, I said, what can I say? And he said, well, you've been practicing meditation several years now. You must have learned something from it. Tell people what you've learned. I thought maybe I should kind of give great explanations on the Four Noble Truths and speak from the scriptures and quote from the experts. But that Ajahn Chah didn't want me to do that. In fact, when I did do that once, he told me, he said, "Don't do that again." So I've never done it again. So in this using the flow of one's life, then, say, my karma, I'm the owner of my karma, heir to my karma. In terms of just using these kind of terms, my karma has brought me into this position right now, sitting on the high seat. This is the karma. And so then this is what we call vipaka karma, of the resultant karma. Having become a monk and then going through the training and then the meditation and then the tradition and the style of our particular of the Thai forest tradition. And so on the conventional level, operating from a conventional form, it's just not me, Sumedho up here kind of, spreading propaganda and showing off in front of you, but it's a reflective position. So when I'm talking, I'm still reflecting. So even if I talk about myself, I don't mean this as some kind of, obsession with, me as a focus that you should all emulate or whatever. But it's more a kind of reflecting out loud from this position, and that way it's a sharing. Because I can't reflect from your position. I can't go around and say how you feel at this moment. I don't know. I can maybe make guesses here and there, and even might get a few right, but to be honest, I don't know. So what I do know is this is the way it is here and now. I remember one of the most difficult times I had was when I had to introduce the Dali Lama at the Barbican. That was really painful. Because really carrying that through when you're you're in a situation where thousands of people, even film stars were there, and kinds of important people, and bodyguards, and Dalai Lama, and all the Buddhists of Britain had assembled, and some had come from European countries and everywhere else, just to. And here I'm supposed to be introducing the Dalai Lama. He doesn't need an introduction. What am I supposed to say? Got up there and managed to say something, but it did bring up some really, I never felt so uncomfortable in front of a group as I did then. So I was saying, I'm never going to do that again. But of course, I could do it again, because the effort, the momentum of the practice of emptiness, trusting solely in that, rather than in, the problem there was I got intimidated by the fact the perception of Dalai Lama and the enormous, thousands of people, and suddenly the self-consciousness and these habits seemed to be overpowering. Now, if you notice the behavior of the Dalai Lama, nothing seems to bother him. He seems totally relaxed, whether it's 1 million people around him or. Well, that's very impressive. It's this wonderful example of a conscious human being who isn't self-conscious, and yet he's got all these titles, Dali Lama, and famous, world famous, most impressive Buddhist of the lot, and he can project all kinds of superlatives onto that, and just having a title like Dalai Lama. And I remember I heard it myself say one time, when he'd come to England, then he'd invite Buddhists to have kind of more intimate meeting with him. So one of these meetings, somebody asked, "What is a Dalai Lama? What does it mean?" And I was very curious about this, how he'd answer that question. Because when you're given a title, the way you relate to somebody with a title is very different than somebody without a title. So, and even though Dali Lama in English really doesn't mean anything to me, that's a Tibetan title. It wouldn't, if you weren't warned ahead of time and know something about Tibetan terminology, it would just be nonsense, wouldn't it? Say, the Dalai Lama, what is it? Some kind of ape or butterfly or what? Could be anything. And then the words Dalai Lama, when you find out Lama is a kind of monk, Tibetan monk, and Dalai Lama is the top of it. That's the head. He reincarnated Lama. He had many previous incarnations, and all this kind of mystery surround him. He's a very special kind of human being. He's not just like you or me, just ordinary kind of man or woman that got born with ordinary parents and that. I mean, we don't have any titles. We're just common folk. But he, the reincarnated Lama, Tulku. And so the mind starts creating, and the way the thinking process works into, these superlative, he's very high, way above, very advanced, enlightened, very wise, and totally unique. There's only one Dalai Lama, at a time. There are never two. So, the totally unique kind of super form. But then his answer to the question was, he said, "Oh, forget all about that. That's just Tibetan culture." He said. And he said, "I see myself as a bhikkhu." I thought, I like that, That seems right. In the terms of even our tradition, a statement that is in line with the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha never talked about Dalai Lamas or anything like that. There was no Dalai Lama then. But the bhikkhu then is a word comes from the tradition. It's what they called monks at that time in India. And the word bhikkhu means, isn't a high-ranking title about how advanced and super one is. It's about the position one holds in the society as an alms mendicant. I made myself into someone who depends on the kindness of others. Is a deliberate, intentional decision. So it wasn't because of just hard luck. A deliberate choice. So reflecting on the bhikkhu, not as a kind of pretentious title, it raised me above the rest of the population, but reflecting on this is an almsman, someone who depends, an individual being who depends on the kindness of others for basic necessity like food, shelter, robes, medicine. Not on, other, luxuries, but on basic requisites. So, on what we need to survive. So then the Dalai Lama was saying that's what he is, rather than trying to explain in detail or convince us about what a Dalai Lama is and that he's a very important, special kind of monk and on like that, which I was kind of expecting. But he didn't do that at all. So I found that from that point on I began to have a lot of respect and trust in the Dalai Lama. if he'd gone on to the other, I would have thought, oh, I don't know about all this. Being, so reincarnated lamas and all these, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But as an identity, it doesn't work. In terms of dhamma, if I claim previous lives as some kind of on that level of I was a previous kind of special being, because that would only be identity with another perception again, So if I could, before I became Sumedho, my name was Robert. So I can remember, I have memories of my previous life as Robert. I can still remember that. Aren't you impressed? But beyond Robert, I have no memory at all for anything. But even if I should have previous life memories arise about being, George Washington or it would still be a memory, wouldn't it? So what? Whether I was Robert or George Washington or Julius Caesar, whatever. Or just some ordinary bloke a peasant on the farm 3,000 years ago. It's still a memory. Memory in terms of dhamma then arises and ceases and not self. So that memory then is seen in this reflective way, not whether the memory is just yesterday or 50 years ago or 10 lifetimes ago. We're not interested in that anymore, but in its reality as dhamma. Memory, sanya khandha, arises, ceases, and then this awakened awareness, then this awakened conscious reality of this moment is aware of this, of changingness, of anicca, of impermanence, of conditioned phenomena. So in terms of getting back to the center point, this here and now, just try that out. Just think of this. This is the center here and now of the universe, and recognize that. This isn't just imagining it, and it's taking these perceptions, but it's also bringing your attention to this reality. And that each one of us is experiencing life from this point. And then our particular karmas, we all have different conditioning, different, qualities and that of conditioning to deal with in this present moment. Both physically and emotionally, intellectually, through memory and whatnot. So these, each one of us is aware. The awareness brings us into a union, into a universe, a unity that can reflect on the way things are, on the changing nature of conditioned phenomena. So and so when I say each one is working out their karma, I'm merely pointing to this reality, that what you're feeling, experiencing at this moment, in terms of its quality, is going to be different than what somebody else is. But the common ground then is in the awareness. That's the point of union, of oneness. And then the conditions can be whatever they are, wonderful, terrible, right, wrong, true, false, and whatever, but pleasant, painful. But the awareness is the stable point that we trust in. So when we talk about the still point, also think of a point usually as a very small thing. So when we talk about one pointedness, we usually think of narrowing everything down to one tiny little dot. Or a point can include everything. Why not? Why does it have to be a tiny little thing that excludes everything? So in one-pointedness, say, then this awareness is the point that includes everything. So from this point here, whatever impinges on this form, on its senses, and various reactions, habitual reactions to that impingement, the point includes all of it. It's not trying to dismiss any of it and ignore it, but to include it. So this recognition, this realizing of this point that includes, and our experience is through this, what I call relaxed attention, opening, being present, not trying to focus on a small little point anymore, but opening, expanding the point to unlimitedness, to infinity. And then the awareness, things arise and cease. We have, experiences through this conscious moment, but our relationship to them is one of awareness and reflection, noticing the changingness, the arising and cessation, the death, the way things die in your conscious moment, the way thoughts arise and cease, emotions, feelings, sensations, come through the senses, through the mind, in their various qualities, arise and cease. And in that cessation, the reality of cessation is the peace, the liberation from the illusions that we create if we're not aware. The way we create a whole world of illusions through the force of habit, through the karmic tendencies that we've acquired. So I offer this as your reflection for this evening.